has said that he was prepared to work with them on that basis, and that's helped us to be able to deal with it so that you weren't having to undo works that had already been done.
Colin Brazers a few weeks ago mentioned about the actual testing, that we had to test it without the suspended ceiling.
Yeah.
Is that now?
So by that now being brought in as part of the time while it's being done with our builder, that will be in place when the testing is done, so it won't affect our testing. It doesn't affect the actual airtightness. The fact that it's airtight won't be affected by it, by the two bringing in. So that hopefully is something that we've managed to solve with the help of with the contractor. Because to be frank, he could have been difficult and said he wasn't prepared to have anyone else come on site, but he said he's prepared to work with them. Any questions? Okay. Shop working group haven't met. There are no new policy introductions or updates this month. The Somerset member, I'm sorry it's so much of a me show tonight, but just a couple of things to update you on. We've been advised with the change to the winter fuel price that's coming through, that will actually affect something like 110,000 residents in Somerset. So it is going to be an issue that will impact local residents. Somerset's accounts are looking better at the moment than they were. We're actually for the first quarter on budget. I should, however, mention that that budget includes us taking £35 million out of our reserves to make the budget balance, and also having permission from the government to sell assets in order to pay revenue, and there's about £38 million of that happening this year. So in effect, we've roughly got an £80 million shortfall in our budget, which is why we're going through this process of the redundancies that are coming through at the moment, which will be in place by next spring. The sales of assets are continuing. You might have seen that recently the Aztec West building that was quite controversial has now been sold. A number of the assets, to be frank, are not being sold at the same price they were bought at. They are not making money, they are losing money, because ultimately all of these assets were bought by the various district councils as long-term revenue earners. They weren't supposed to be a short-term capital gain. So unfortunately it's going to mean that we will lose money on them, but part of the conditions of us being able to use the capital money meant that you have to sell the commercial assets first. So that is what's underway at the moment, and that will continue for the rest of the year. In terms of a couple of other items, just to let you know, they are aiming to crack down on underage sales in shops at the moment. Recently a Bridgewater firm was fined £3,500 for selling items to underage people, so these are things like vapes, alcohol, cigarettes, those sort of things. So there is an active campaign going on at the moment to clamp down on that. And the last couple of things I was going to mention, one of the big costs that's hitting Somerset at the moment is actually children's services. This time, probably about 18 months ago, we probably had about 450 children in care at Somerset. There are now over 600, so there has been a substantial increase. It's not something that is cheap to do when you're looking after young people. Also, a number of the young people who are now being looked after are older young people, often with specific needs, which means that again it is quite an expensive thing to do. So we are several millions of pounds over budget on the children's care. Two things are still being worked on. One is there is a further campaign to try and encourage people to foster, because ultimately it's better for the children, and to be frank, it's better for the council's budget as well. But also we are still proceeding with the purchasing of properties across Somerset to use as small children's homes, where you will have 2 or 3 young people in a house with adults to supervise, rather than having the old idea of the big children's homes. There are already, I think, 6 or 7 up and running. There's another 3 or 4 that are due to come through, and that saves a huge amount of money. One of the problems with children's care at the moment is quite a lot of commercial businesses have got into children's care across the country, and they are very profitable. Unfortunately, if you haven't got your own provision locally, you are pretty much dictated to how much you're going to have to pay. So that is something we're actively still working on. Any questions anyone's got in relation to Somerset issues? Okay, so that takes us on to financial report. I think Owen had sent through some figures just to update. He did send me through, in terms of cash flow, Owen was quite happy with where we were. We currently have approximately £160,000 in the bank, because obviously we've still got a lot of the loan money that we have taken in for the building project. So as things stand at the moment, again with our budget, we are currently well within budget at the moment, and the plan is currently to have a further update at the next meeting in terms of where we are in terms of cash flow and budget before we get to setting our precept in November, December time. Payment list. So we've got the statutory payments, which are our regular payments, which were agreed as at the March agenda minutes. But we also have two variable payments. One you'll see is payment to Paul Martin for his services, which is the contract management of the build. And there is the parish hall room hire account, which is also sent. There is one amendment that it should actually be £158.50, so it's out by 50p. Is there a proposal?
Mr Chairman, can I propose that two parts to this? One, our statutory payments are approved, and secondly, that our variable payments are approved as detailed in the minutes.
Okay. Is that seconded? Any other comments? If not, all those in favour, we pay those as outlined. And I'm going to say simply because of the parish hall one.
Yeah.
Okay, that brings us on to other matters of consideration. Shop toilet build updating, I think we covered the initial bit. Public Works Loans Board, we still have one tranche left to bring down. That's due to be brought down later this month. So that'll be the final 40,000 that will be brought down. As I say, payments to contractor are still continuing in line with those that are signed off by Paul Martin, but nothing untoward has come forward on that at present. The buildings update, Paul Martin matters, I think, as they've covered. In terms of the lease, the update just to give you on that at the moment is we were hoping to bring the lease to you at this meeting. The idea was to obviously get that to members in order to give you time to have a look through it. There has been a hold-up in terms of the solicitors talking to each other, and we had an issue where holidays has meant that things haven't been finalised. The proposal we're looking for at the moment will be that we will have a draft lease, we believe, within the next week, and both the lease and the agreement to lease. We will then circulate that to members well in advance of the next meeting, at least a week beforehand, so you've got a chance to go through and have a look at it in detail. But obviously we'll get that round to members as soon as we've got anything. As was reported in the last meeting, not in the last meeting, in Owen's last update, Owen and myself met with the solicitor just after our last meeting, which was basically to try and move matters on. Nothing has been changed within the proposals that we had originally put in the draft agreement that we had set out, but it is transferring that into legalese and making sure that it meets all the criteria that it has to, and that both parties hopefully then will be able to agree to what's in there. I don't think there should be anything in there that is not something that the council has already been appraised of. Any questions? Okay. And I don't think there's any other matters other than those that have been above. B is play area upgrades, quotes, grants and safety matters. So you'll all be aware that we've obviously had the damage that was done to the safety surface under the roundabout. We were in the position where we were getting quotes for the replacement equipment as had been agreed by the council previously, which was in effect the zip wire on the far side of the green to the left hand side. the seesaw moving to the right-hand side and removing the A-frame. We have now had 3 sets of quotes for doing that. We've also had quotes for replacement of the safer surface. We are looking, broad brush, we're basically looking, they're all fairly similar, but they're all around about £20,000. The safer surface itself under the roundabout is between £3,000 and £4,000. So we are currently in the position, as you know, we've got some funds already set aside. A slightly disappointing update for you, which has only come to me today, is that we had gone to Valencia, that used to be Viridor, for a grant which we'd been accepted through their stage 1. Stage 2 meant we had to get 3 quotes into them so that they could then take us to the next stage. They've advised me today, as they've advised everyone else who's applying to grants to them, that they are no longer doing any grants. They've stopped doing the landfill tax grants. So we were applying for 5,000, so we will need to look again at how we fund that gap. But my hope is that by the time we get to our next meeting, we will have a clearer picture of exactly what's happening with other large items of expenditure that we're currently operating with the shop. And obviously, if there are any other grant sites that anyone knows that we can go for, please let us know. We have put up a GoFundMe page which has had a few responses, but that is never going to be a big funder. I've also had someone in the village who's approached me and said they're going to try and run a coffee morning for us so that we can have some fundraising that way. But if anyone's got any ideas of grants that they can suggest, please let us know. Melina?
No, but I would like to say it's very disappointing because I was actually in the process of applying to Viridor over a year ago for money for the play area, and was just waiting on one piece of document from Owen. So it's disappointing that we now get nothing.
No, it is. I mean, unfortunately, it's just that obviously they now no longer do that, and we're now in a position where we've got the grant. Sorry, we've got the invoices, which you need to have 3 sets of invoices and everything else. But it is unfortunate that we've fallen foul of that.
With regards to the GoFundMe page, I haven't seen anything about that. How are we advertising that?
We haven't pushed it hugely yet, so we will, again, it has been sent out through the GoFundMe. It hasn't been pushed much more than that yet.
Okay.
Am I right in thinking that as a parish council we're not allowed to actively fundraise? But we could get a body of people that is not of the parish council to have like a music on the green type thing, you know where I'm going with this, kick the cat. Because it's so popular, we could maybe raise a chunk of that money, but not. So as long as we don't do it as a parish council, we could.
So we're not in a position to do fundraising ourselves, but others could put on events and then donate that money to the parish.
If we put
in the
on
same way that
big
we've been given grants, as you know, by an individual in the village who's put some money towards the play equipment. And obviously we've had other funders like the Nuttall Trust who've given us grants for things. So people can donate money to the parish council, but we shouldn't as councillors be going out there putting on fundraising events.
No, but somebody else.
But if councillors happen to be involved in doing it as an individual member of the community, that's up to them. But it's not the parish council running the event.
That's what,
Melina?
So can you as a councillor step aside from that sort of thing? Is it pick and choose when councillors are councillors and when they're not councillors?
No, you can do it as an individual, you can raise funds, but what we can't do is as the parish council, we cannot do it as the council itself. Okay. Right, that takes us on to Hill Lane car park gates. Right. Remember, do you remember, again, we had, some time ago, we had looked at securing the Hill Lane car park with putting the gates across. We've had now 3 sets of quotes come in for the works to be carried out. We also, again, you may remember, we had an issue raised with us which was to do with the footpath near what used to be Mike Simmons' post office on Brent Corner, where the gate there was immovable for people to get through, and we'd approached Somerset about putting in a Bristol gate, which is basically it's like a farm gate with a pedestrian gate in the middle of it. So we've had quotes for doing both the car park gates and for the installation of the gate that would be supplied by Somerset Council. We've had 3 contractors. The 3 quotes for the 2 jobs together are, the most expensive was £1,698. The next was £1,678, and the cheapest was £1,577. So that would result in us having at the top of the Hill Lane car park a 15-foot Bristol gate, which is being supplied by Somerset for free, and then an 8-foot gate meeting that so that it can open up so that it's the full width of the entrance, maintaining agricultural access and not restricting the access to Windy Ridge, because there was some concern that if we narrowed it, they wouldn't be able to actually get into their drive. There would be drop bolts on both of those gates so that they can be dropped in position when they're closed, but also held back when they're open. We would then need to obviously chain and padlock that when we needed to secure it.
So is that, how's that going to work, Bob? Because someone's going to have to go up there
Correct.
and close them at night and open them in the morning.
Yes. There has been some suggestion that we I mean, it depends on us as a council. We have had other parishes I know with similar situations have a rota of councillors doing it. Others use volunteers from the community. We have had some suggestion that there are people who are prepared to come forward and volunteer to do that were they in place, but obviously the reason we were looking at doing it originally was twofold. One was overnight issues that had been drawn to our attention, and the other was potential of encampments being put up there if people turned up and wanted to stay there for an extended period. At the moment there is no way that we can stop that, and we would find it more difficult to evict on the basis that we have made no attempt to make the area secure.
No, I accept that, and I'd be prepared to do my shift to open and close it, providing it was agreed by all the rest of the council and we had some support from the village, because it's an important area. So yeah, I'd be happy to do it, but we need everybody's support and everybody going to open and close them. Yeah.
Melina?
Have there been any incidents of overnight stays or?
We have had those reported to us, yes.
Mm.
We've had a couple of emails from residents in that area who have been concerned about some of the activities that they say have been taking place on that.
I know there was concerns about activities, but actually overnight stays or?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Amanda?
I was just going to say, I agree with Colin that we could all take turns, but I also think that the locking and the unlocking needs to be the responsibility of councillors, and kind of not relying, because it's our car park and gates, and I think we need to be responsible for it, not relying on maybe a resident who says they may or may not, but I think we need to make a rota between ourselves. And then if one of us can't do it, we maybe phone someone else and say, well, could you do it today or tonight or whatever.
Okay. So twofold then. One, are members happy that we proceed on the basis that we would, as councillors, share the responsibility of locking and unlocking?
Is that every night?
Every day
Probably
and
would be
night.
every day and night.
Is that actually going to be sustainable?
Well, that's why I said, you know, it's going to have to be open and closed unless you, well, no, you can't make any exceptions really. It's either open or it's closed.
Can you just remind me where Hill Lane Gates are, where it is?
So basically you head, do you know where the S-bend is, just down the road from here?
Mhm.
You've got Church Lane goes up,
Yeah.
you then bear left up Hill Lane,
Okay.
go right the way up to the top until you get to the sort of where it plateaus out.
Mhm.
There's a farmhouse on your right, which is where the footpath goes up the knoll,
Mhm.
and the car park is on the left-hand side there.
Right, okay.
So the history of it is that the farmer who used to farm up there used to allow people to park on it to walk up the knoll. The current landowner was has sold off a number of plots of land up there, and when doing that, he sold or offered the parish council to sell it to us for £1, so that it would remain as a car parking area, because the danger is if it ceased, so many people go up the knoll and park in that area, you would end up with cars abandoned all around Hill Lane. So that's how it's come into our management. It's just a question now of making sure that one, it's the nighttime issues, but it is also the wider potential problem if it's not secured or cannot be secured.
To just go off what Amanda and Jonathan said, I don't have a problem with taking on part of that rota, but we would need to consider when it's going to be shut.
Yeah.
And what happens if, for example, you can't open it that day and you can't call anybody else. So what I'm hearing is it may not be the end of the world if it doesn't get opened one day.
Oh, no, it's used every day of the week.
Right, okay.
People are parking up there to either exercise their dogs
Right, okay.
in the fields or walk up the knoll. It is used
It's busy.
every day,
Right, okay.
and it's busier at times. And I can't. There's more to say, but
Well, there's 12 of us and there's 14 shifts. So my math says we may be able to do one each,
Yeah.
potentially.
Because we're going to have Brian Freestone.
No.
He's a classic opener and closer, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we're taking the view then that we think we can find ways of making sure that we can deal with this, do we want to go ahead and actually get the works ordered?
Well, I'll put it the other way. I think we should establish how we're going to do it to make sure that it's actually going to work, and then do the work, because I wouldn't want to do the work and it fail, because it's a lot of money.
That's always open.
I would like someone to come up with some suggestions ready for the next meeting as how it's going to work, and then we can all sign up to it and spend the money.
I mean, the only slight contrary is, and I'm happy to go along, and we've taken this long to get this, we can wait another month. All I was going to say was, in terms of people using the car park for a place to stay, you could have a situation where at least if there are occasions when neighbouring parishes become aware of people looking for sites to spend nights over and can warn each other to make sure the places are secure. At the moment our village green is secure because we have a padlock gate. At the moment we cannot secure that car park because there is no facility to secure it.
Is the concern caravans, or is it people in camper vans? Because if it's caravans, you might be able to get a restricted height.
We looked at restricted height, and the residents in that area were very unhappy about that.
The bakers need to get their hay in and out
You can get
as well.
swing ones, can't you? Because they have.
It was also stated by residents up there that they felt it would look like a municipal car park, that they didn't really feel that was appropriate for the top of Brent Knoll.
But the alternative is the gates don't get unlocked, essentially.
Well,
there's issues in
Yeah, the alternative is to put the gates up and then decide how it's going to work. And then, you know, if you don't want to do it, then you can do it, but the gates are there. So it is a commitment.
Sorry. So looking at it as well another way, you'd have like different openings for summer, different openings for winter. You know, opening and closing, because people aren't going to be up there
You'd have to.
at 7 a.m. in the morning in the
No.
winter, are they? Or
No,
so
I mean,
be there.
Yes, it could well be that during the winter months you leave it open. It's just
yeah.
the summer when you need to probably
Open,
protect
yes,
it.
yeah.
But then somebody's going to go up a icy hill in bad weather and down to open and close it.
I go up there every day to see my sheep, so I'm happy to do the mornings. But I propose that we get it up, and then we work out the finer points
Is that second?
post works.
Yeah, I'll second that, yeah.
Okay, so just to confirm, that is the quote that is for 1577.
Who's the contractor, please?
It's Steve Pinn.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah.
So we, as I say, we had three. I mean, I won't say who's quoted which, but we had three quotes. Was from Steve Pinn, Ian Morgan, and Premier Fencing, which are the people we've used elsewhere in the past, and those are the three sets of quotes that we've had.
You could do it to do the rail as well.
Yes.
On the lower path.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a proposal which has been seconded that we go ahead with the Steve Pinn quote of 1577. All those in favour, please show. Yeah, that's unanimous. Okay, thank you very much. And the final item we've got there then is the general condition of public rights of way. You may have seen on Facebook, Nextdoor, and various other social medias, and we've also had a couple of emails commenting on the state of the footpaths in the parish at the moment. Basically, landowners should maintain their footpaths, but in the past, the county council has occasionally gone through and done a cut through on certain paths. They haven't done all of them. That has now ceased. They do not do that in this parish anymore. We have been advised that it is within our powers as a parish council, should we wish to do that sort of work, we can. But obviously that comes with an expense which currently we haven't built into our budget this year. But what I particularly wanted to put it on the agenda for tonight was for something for members to have a think about, because if we want to start looking at maybe doing that sort of maintenance, and it would particularly be the high usage paths, the ones we've had complaints about are the ones that Colin mentioned going up the Knoll, particularly also going from Brent Corner up towards the reservoir. That has been incredibly badly overgrown. There is a set of footpaths that run halfway up the Knoll between sort of Woodlands Hotel and Brent Corner. Those are in a bad state as well. We're mainly talking about grass and undergrowth, other than on the one that Colin mentioned, where it's particularly the hedge that's come across. So it's something that we need to either look at taking on as members and going around and doing it. That in itself obviously is a commitment to do. Getting contractors in, maybe as the council used to do a couple of times a year, to blitz it and put some money in the budget to do that. Or we just simply leave it that technically it's the responsibility of the landowners and hope that they'll do it. Some landowners are much better than others. The slight difficulty we have with taking on certain paths is that some landowners may feel, why are you doing his path and you're not doing my path? But that's something that we would have to decide as a council. Colin?
Well, it's just that when I was chairman, we did have a quote from Steve Pinn to do the Knoll path and to also do the path run by the tanks, etc. I mean, I don't know if people have seen it, but the path that is around the actual tanks is fantastic, because Bristol Water have been and done it. It's like a motorway, it's fabulous. But the rest, which is owned by the Alsop family, does mean cutting back, and maybe we should write to them and just say, please.
To be fair, we have had some correspondence from them just recently saying that there have been some reasons they haven't done it yet, but they are imminently about to be clearing their path. So they have said that they are aware that they're due for doing it, but that they have written to us saying that they will be doing that.
Yeah, I was going to say that one should be sorted, because they did do it in fairness before, didn't they? And they are going to do it, I believe. What I was going to say is the one that you said about going opposite Woodlands, that comes up down at Shakespeare's Corner, that one there, you're talking multiple landowners.
Yes.
And I really think that those landowners should be clearing that path, because our money should be going into the play equipment and stuff like that, and not, because going back, I don't know, 30 years plus, there wasn't so much of a problem there because that wasn't fenced across there. Now various the fences have gone up bit by bit by bit across those fields. Of course, that has contributed now to the build-up of undergrowth, whereas it used to be trampled down. That, obviously, that's a thing now where they've put livestock and whatever in there, so the fencing is now there, so you've got the build-up of undergrowth up to the fence. Now, if they put a fence there, I really think that they should be clearing their paths, because we're not just talking one landowner, are we? We're talking several.
And therein there lies the difficulty, because you've got so many different if some of them do it and some of them don't, you've still got a problem passing the path. So
How is it enforceable in other parishes?
I think it's very much down to the landowner.
Right.
It's not, in a nutshell. You can't compel them. You have to rely on goodwill.
So I'm just putting myself in the shoes of a landowner. Why should I bother?
Yeah.
Nobody's going to compel me to do it.
Yeah. I mean, if members wish, what we could do between now and again the next meeting is we could get a couple of estimates for what the sort of cost would be, so that members can then decide whether they think that's a reasonable sum, whether it's something we want to take on or not. It's difficult because until we have a figure, if it was going to cost us £10 to do the whole lot, no one's going to bat an eyelid. If it's going to cost us £10,000, we might have more of an issue. But
is there an option to maybe speak with the landowners to not necessarily compel them to do it, but to at least compel them to pay for it? So Amanda was saying that there's, they say 5 landowners, organising that, getting people in, the cost. I would think actually that's too much trouble for me to do. But if they had to turn around and say, I need to pay £200, they might say, just do it. So I'm just wondering if that's an option.
Yeah, I'd say that's a good idea. And the second thing is, like you said, well, we have working parties and do it ourselves, because I would rather do that than dip into the budget where we know we need to spend a lot on play equipment, which to me is way more important. And also, that the situation with the growth this year, which has been terrific from this whole spring and summer, which has meant that really those paths would have needed to be cleared, I don't know, 3 or 4 times over the season. It's not just a one-off, really, is it? I think that it's a progression, and it's a build-up of growth. So if we do it now, it may be, you'd say, well, if we keep paying for it to be done, then how many times does it have to be done? Does somebody say, oh, the grass is that high, we need to cut it, or is it this high, we need to cut it? You start to, I think you open a bit of a
It's our
floodgate.
responsibility to do it, and it's like we've established it's not our responsibility
Exactly,
to do it.
yeah.
So
okay, so if we look at how we can identify and then make contact with landowners just to point out to them that they have an issue, and equally, if members are up for it, then maybe have a working party on part of it and see how we get on.
And also, I was going to say that what was already mentioned about the one up the knoll, about that being flailed, I think that is probably already, those wheels are in motion.
Right.
So that might not be too much of a problem, because that is a massive job and obviously something which needs to be done mechanically.
Yeah. John?
Just listening, is this not an opportunity we go out to the village and ask for volunteers as well? Just like they've done the beach walks at Burnham and Barrow collecting litter, that we actually try and involve the whole village and do it collaboratively. And same with the car park as well. There's plenty of people in this village that are retired and might actually enjoy a walk up the hill and the responsibility. So again, to the same point, is it an opportunity to ask the village, help your village out, help with the car park or help with the clearing? And lastly, by doing that, maybe we will highlight to some of the landowners that they need to be a little bit more switched on in terms of their tidiness and safety, etc. Thank you.
Yeah. Is everyone happy with that suggestion? I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Anything else that anyone's got under the matters of consideration? Right, which takes us to matters of report. Jane, anything you want to put on the agenda for next time, in effect?
It's the speeding still along Burton Road. Not just tractors. Not just tractors. No, Hudson Village has now got 20 miles an hour throughout their village. And I just think, why can't we have it through the village? From East Brent all the way down to the other end. 30 miles isn't working.
Okay, we can certainly put it on the agenda for any of us to discuss. Amanda?
No.
Jonathan?
Signage around the railway bridges and stuff.
Yes.
I think Owen was doing quite a bit of work on that, so it's
Yes.
probably why it was on this agenda.
Melina?
Revisiting the dog mess.
Yeah, I will chase that up,
No, I was
because
gonna say that
again,
was
that was sat with Owen
underway, I think.
talking to the council, wasn't he? So, yeah, put that down. John?
No.
Malcolm?
Erratic postal deliveries in the village.
Okay.
Done.
Cool. No, nothing from me.
Lovely meeting you all.
Yes, nice to meet you. Thanks for coming.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's the end of the agenda, so we'll close the meeting, and next one is beginning of October. Thank you all for meeting, guys.
Thank you.